When Jesus calls his disciples, he simply says, "Follow me." And ultimately, this will mean that they'll leave one way of life behind and begin a new life. For some, that means leaving their fishermen, leaving their boats behind. Then we have like Matthew, the tax collector. He leaves behind a business. They leave behind a variety of lives to begin a new life, to follow him into the unknown, wherever he leads them. Then again, later in John, he says, "Abide in me, remain in me," which carries the idea of staying, of dwelling. It actually is the same word as dwelling. And there is a strong sense of, all through the New Testament and Old Testament, of living in the place where I've been called to dwell. So there are sort of these two tensions at work in the life of discipleship. One is the call to follow, to go, to abandon the familiar and enter the unfamiliar. This would be the story of Abraham. He's called to leave behind his family, his land, everything he knows, and to begin a new life. And he sort of lives a life of naked faith, trying to trust the faithfulness of God. Now, we might think of, let's say, Joseph in the New Testament as a life of being called to stay, of life of faithfulness. He's called to stay faithful to Mary once he finds out she's pregnant. And that the angel tells him that this baby that's coming is from the Lord. So what does Joseph do? Well, for most of our eyes, he sort of fades into the background. But what he does is he lives into the mundane dailiness, the day-to-day caring for his bride and his child, raising Jesus as his own, naming him, protecting them. He lives out the daily rhythms. And that is also a profound form of discipleship. And so both of these tensions are at work in the life of the disciple, to go and to stay. Sometimes to go can be a dramatic call, like Gandalf showing up at Bilbo's house and suddenly a house filled with dwarves, and he's off onto a journey that will transform his life. Other times it's actually a little bit more unexpected, unwanted. We lose a job. That could be a form of being called to go. We have to go. Not that God caused us to lose the job, but he may be leading us to a new place. And he is. He's faithful. He's present even in our difficulties. Could be a health condition I have to follow, deal with, a family member that has come with a sickness that I care for, some other changing condition in life that suddenly causes me to leave behind one life and begin another. This can be sometimes exciting, like a mission trip, but sometimes it can be difficult and challenging. And maybe both of those emotions are there. And so part of the challenge of learning to go is just learning to trust that God is absolutely faithful, that he hasn't forsaken us in the going. Now, sometimes we want to go, but we're called to stay. There's been plenty of times that we may have a job that we don't particularly enjoy, that we would like to leave. We have to stay. We have to live into that. We have to live into the difficulties, live into the challenges. That could happen in a church, in a family. Paul challenges even when he writes to the Christians that those family members that are living with an unbeliever, if the unbeliever chooses to stay with them, because God could be at work in the staying. So sometimes we stay when we would like to go. The life of staying is living into the day-to-day, just the mundane. And if you think about it, this is a profound form of shaping. It is exactly the way God designed us to be shaped. Children growing up into adulthood, they're being shaped in the day-to-day rhythms of eating and learning how to talk, learning how to walk. All these are happening just in the daily rhythms of living in a family, living into relationships. And as they grow, there comes a point in their life where they have to go. They may go away to college. They may go off on a mission. They may become married. I don't know. Any number of things may happen, and they go and they form a new life. And so we live in between both of these tensions. Much of life is actually living in the day-to-day, living in the mundane, being faithful, knowing that God is faithful. It's learning how to practice rhythms like of daily prayer, where we learn and just to rehearse God's faithfulness every day and trust him and worship him. Begin the day worshiping him, in the day offering the day back to him as an act of thanksgiving. So much of life is part of this day-to-day. But then there are times when we have to go, times when we will be challenged in ways that really shake us to the core. And in these times, we trust the faithfulness of God, that even though we are walking an unknown journey, his word is the light. It is leading me into truth. So we trust him both in the staying and in the going, that he is at work shaping our lives and revealing his glory in us. May the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and give you peace.